I want you to say these are not the druids you've been looking for.
These are not the druids you are looking for.
Okay, hello again, everybody. I'm back with my good friend Colin Gibbons in England. We're going to continue on our strange free-form conversations from where we left off last time, and we'll see where it goes. How are you doing, Colin?
Very well, thank you, Thomas. Doing all right.
Did you get battered by that storm? I was wondering that over there because you were right in the path of it.
It was a bit windy. We had a bench in the bin went over, but that was about all. And you could hear, doors and windows creaking when it really gusted, but that was about all.
Yeah, that's all I got.
No biggie.
We're usually battered by it, so I was quite surprised. For once, we weren't. So it's like, yeah, we will rebuild. I put the bin back up. That was me. That was how bad it was for me this time.
Cumbria, Northern England, it's rains and windy.
Yeah,
Who
I think,
knows?
but usually the mountains in Ireland usually stop the worst of these hurricanes from getting to England.
Yeah,
But this time it did. Some parts of England and Scotland did get battered, but it was their turn now.
yeah.
We had it last time. So listen, you have some very interesting ideas about the creation of the egregoric thingy, out of the within human history and so on. I kind of like this idea because I often wonder, like, will the ultimate egregore be created by AI, accidentally or deliberately? So, let's throw some ideas at me, and we'll see we'll run with that ball.
Well, the way I've been sort of observing matters and events within the world is that the world seems to be in utter chaos at the moment, as I'm sure everybody can appreciate. We seem to have a very ordered system, which incidentally people weren't exactly happy with, but they were sort of content to put up with the system as it was, as ordered as it was. And that system is basically it's in free fall collapse as we speak. And the the chaos I think is added to with all your sort of um, events and symbols and anything that happens, anything that you can witness or observe, even your own thoughts. Because I think quite a lot of what you experience within the third dimension on the surface of the earth, then you'll put that into your mind, which I consider to be of a fourth dimension. And that can be it's the fourth dimension is not subject to time and space in the way time and space is limited on earth. And so when that comes back um into your own mind from your own thoughts, then you've got a different view of what you observed. Sometimes, I'm not saying necessarily it's going to be the same, but you can observe an event, whatever it happens to be. You can think about it in your own mind, and like the next morning after you've slept on it, you've got a completely different view of events, and you don't really know why, but you know that what you witnessed is either correct or incorrect for whatever reason. There's a sort of, I suppose, godly knowing as best way I can put it. Because you've got an earthly knowing through your third dimensional experience. It's like saying, that's a pen. Yeah, well, we know that's a pen in the 3D on Earth, but then you can go to bed at night and then you can have a dream about it, wake up the next morning, and your view of the pen's changed. Now, I mean, I know it's a pretty unlikely thing conceptually, but on something that's more complex, say like 9/11, which I think was some sort of Masonic ritual, which you've already stated, sort of ripped the fabric of space time and allowed a waveform collapse within the collective consciousness of humanity. And it's basically since that happened, things have collapsed into absolute lunacy madness. I mean, we had a situation, what, 4 or 5 years ago, when if you looked up the price of oil, it was negative $40. Now, there was all sorts of um, linguistic gymnastics to say, oh, well, we didn't have enough tankers, so we had to pay people to store it. Da, 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 da. Hang on a minute. oil was worth negative $40. Well, how the bloody hell can you're paying people to take it off your hands? What kind of a um, capitalistic society is that? That's it doesn't even work within corporatism, which is separate from capitalism. If you understand how economic um, systems work, because capital comes from the head and corporate comes from the body. So the body of the corporation does the work, but the brain power that goes into it is the capital. So, you're getting dislocations in what we previously considered were highly ordered systems and would always work because they always worked and nothing's ever going to change. But it's all falling to bits and going out the window, and nobody seems to understand why or has any firm ideas. And then there's news events. I mean, the one that's got me, and it's probably going to be slightly controversial to say it. I see it in the same way as the Madeleine McCann and the Nicola Bulley, which is this Charlie Kirk assassination. There's aspects to that that don't ring true. There's aspects to that that don't make sense. I can't tell you what they are. You just observe it and you just think, whoa, what is going on here?
I
So
can,
you
I
can,
can, I can tell you what it is. In all those situations, and the Nicola Bulley one was a very interesting one, that one. In all those
yeah,
situations, it it was presented in a manner that if it was a child or a partner of yours in that situation, they behaved in the complete opposite of what you would and I would behave. We'd be very, very
yeah,
traumatized and upset. And
yeah,
to me, there's almost like, you see, it's not that I don't believe that Madeleine McCann was kidnapped. It's not that I don't believe Nicola Bulley died in that river. It's not that I don't believe Charlie Kirk was shot, possibly by some lunatic. It's
yeah.
it's almost like an egregore. Here we go. Gets
It
created
is.
that's related to inhuman behavior and
Yeah,
strange psychology adjacent to it. Madeline
yes,
McCann, the parents out jogging and setting up merchandising sites while they were still looking for the kid at the very early on. Nicola Bulley was like,
who
just
bloody hell does that?
and how come it took so long to find a body? If you look at the spot, it's nothing. You know, you and I walking up down the river in a pair, those high trousers that the fishermen wear, we would have found our body in 5 minutes. And yet the
Yeah,
best top police teams didn't. And then, of course, the Charlie Cook and that bizarre ritual mass, that bizarre requiem mass with the wife and everything. It,
yeah,
it, it almost that creates an egg. I think they're very good examples you picked of the shattered reality in the post 9/11 world.
yeah. First thing I saw news-wise was regarding Charlie Kirk, which I found interesting because I've been researching heraldry, which is angels are heralded and flags and flags signal the intention of a vessel. Well, is your vessel full or empty? Is the captain on the bridge? But when you talk about on the bridge, then you're getting into what I would term brain architecture. But that's another subject, perhaps for later in this conversation or another day even. Um, but his widow was pictured making a statement either the day after or whatever, and she had a white hat with the number 47 on it and a donkey. Well, if you know your Abrahamic religions, the donkey carried Christ to Jerusalem before his crucifixion.
Yeah,
Well,
he
Jerusalem's a
rode in on
house
an
of,
ass.
yeah,
Yeah,
but Jerusalem's a house of bread. Use your loaf, house of bread, your brain, your skull, right? Now, the number four and seven, 47, that adds to 11. Well, what's that in the tarot? It's wisdom. No, it's not. Sorry, it's justice.
yeah, justice. Yeah,
Wisdom is number nine. Number nine's wisdom,
is the hermit. Number
which is
nine
the
is
hermit.
the hermit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's his guiding light. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Where did you get nine
light of
from?
your soul.
Where did you get? I know you
Pardon?
got 11 from the numerology, but where did you get nine from?
That's out of the tarot. Number nine is the Hermit,
No, but I
which is
mean,
Leo.
what brought the number nine into the stock conversation for you? I know where you
Oh,
got
I'm
it.
just saying. Well, there's 9/11, which is the
Okay,
ritual.
that's the link. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
but you see, the hat, the white hat with golden numbers on it is adds 47 adds to 11, which
Yeah,
is of course justice. It's the
yeah,
justice card. I was mixing myself up slightly there. To apologise. So
yeah,
you've
yeah,
got in heraldry, white signifies the metals, which is silver.
yeah.
Same on flags, and that's innocence. So that's the innocence. And then there's gold. I'll just have to refer to my notes because I've got my head so full of nonsense. I can't remember everything. To apologise for this, folks. Got more paper than I know what to do with here.
Just to interject while you're
Uh,
looking at that,
yeah,
the the justice in the tarot is really
yeah,
based on natural law, the correctional
yes.
force of nature.
Oh, so that it is.
Yeah,
So that it is. So all the crazy nastiness that's been going on in the world for the last however many hundreds or even thousands of years is going to be put right. That's what I say. So ore, which is gold, or and it's yellow on flags,
yeah, or
is it's faith, obedience, and gentility. So that's what the gold numbers over the interest is. So it's faith and gentility and obedience to well, I presume to your own God if you're pagan, or to God if you're Abrahamic. Well, from that point of view, it doesn't matter. But if the Abrahamic God's an evil God, or who knows? I mean, that's moot point. Um, that's what they were signaling. So Christ, as in the Christ consciousness, was taken into the mind through faith and obedience of his innocence. So that's the signals that I read from that news report based on the rules of heraldry from angelic forces. So it's quite interesting because angelic forces must be heavenly bodies because angels don't exist on earth, the earth being the devil's playground. I mean, you get that with your runic symbols, you see. Elk sedge and calc. Well, elk sedge is wisdom,
uh,
protection,
life, yeah,
and,
debt,
and
yeah,
calc is death and ulceration and disease, isn't it?
yeah,
Which,
and
interestingly, if you join them
they're
together, you
both
get the British flag.
yeah, that's very interesting. But they're also it's algaes could mean either life or death depending on which way it's run. But you brought up
Yeah.
something simple, interesting there. Have you noticed that they're trying to make a religion out of Charlie Kirk?
Well, yeah, of course they are.
He's like
Well,
the an
that'll be
American
part of the
Christ.
egregore. It's the manipulation of people's thought forms, and then the thought forms of the godly mind will manifest it on earth.
Oh, big time. And
That's
that's why they had all the fireworks and everything at the weird Requiem Mass or whatever it was.
yeah,
She
yeah,
came out of
yeah,
right as she was like the Virgin Mary.
yeah, yeah,
And apparently
absolutely.
she comes from a very big Jesuit family. I don't know if that's confirmed, but that's what I heard.
Well, what do you know, Jesuit?
Yeah. But they're definitely
You see, I
trying to
mean,
make him into a conservative Christ for a kind of a new age.
yes, but you see, you used to talk about well, you still do, I suppose, the psychic weather. Psychic weather. What's psychic weather if it's not egregoric thought form? And you know, Britain's got miserable weather, yeah, because people are bloody miserable because they're sick of the way things are, and we don't quite know what to do about it. But part of the reason people don't know what to do about it is because the laughably termed education system tells you what they want you to know, doesn't tell you anything else. It's like occult magic. Everybody thinks occult means bad. Occult means hidden. To occlude is Latin to hide. So if you occlude something, you hide it. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I was occulted for a moment there. Doesn't make me bad. It just makes me behind a piece of paper and you can't see me. So if you think if there's good things in the world, super technologies that could help us live a really good life, all of us, everybody in the world, doesn't matter who you are, what you are, that your life's going to be improved. And that technology and that knowledge is occulted. That's a crime against the rest of us by whoever's hidden it. And
Another
that
thing,
also isn't it.
Yeah, another thing, talking another one, another egregore. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm like
Okay.
you that way. Things fire off. When
Yes.
Cash Patel was announcing the investigation to Charlie Kirk's murder, he said, I'll see you in Valhalla, brother." Did you see that?
Yeah.
Now that
I
was
didn't, but that's
the
interesting.
Christians went bonkers because they said that Charlie was a Christian and Cash Patel is supposed to be a Hindu, Christian, whatever, and here they were doing Nordic paganism. Now, there's no
Yeah.
way that he said that as an accident. Now, at first, I thought he was going to say later on, "Oh, but we're both big fans of we were both big fans of the Thor movie, and we would joke about going to Valhalla." But he didn't even say that. He put that out there. He let it float into the ether, and suddenly, the American conservative right, since that was announced, have been coming after pagans. Every right wing
Yeah.
commentator in America is blaming pagans for all of the world's problems. Right after Patel said, "I'll see you in Valhalla." Now, come on.
Yeah.
What's the hell is that? If that's not an egregore, I don't know what is, because that absolutely was.
No, you've hit the nail on the head. Absolutely there, Thomas. I mean, this is the kind of thing I'm trying to sort of I mean, I'm not wishing to proselytize anybody. It's just a matter of open your mind and think about what you're being exposed to, whether it's social media. I mean, even us two talking, that is um, what I would suggest I would like to do is give people assistance and advice on the interpretations of the perceptions of your observations rather than saying you must do this because Colin says so or you must do it because Thomas says so because that's nonsense. That's proselytization and it's wrong.
Yeah,
All I would say is open your mind, open your eyes, open your pineal gland, because in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man's king, and that's your pineal gland. Shut your eyes, you're still receiving the information,
yeah,
and consider not just what you're looking at, but why you're being shown it. I mean, the Charlie Kirk thing, he could be dead, it might be a stage stunt, but one way or another, everybody's hating him or loving him or it's a tragedy or it's the best thing, get rid of bastards like him. There's all these, you know, what if people are arguing over a lie? I mean, what does that tell you? That tells you that people are easily led. If people are arguing over truth, that's bad enough.
yeah. In
You
Frasier,
see,
yeah, I think
because
he was
how many
born.
different
I think I know this sounds wild, but I think he was born to be sacrificed. The more I think about it,
I
you
wouldn't put that past the realms of possibility.
you
I'm not
look at
saying it's a fact, but it
no, I'm
certainly
the
needs
same
to be
way
put
too.
into the consideration of your own
But I haven't
thought
pulled it
form.
out of my ass because I'll tell you why. In Frasier's The Golden Bell, they talk about this kind of thing of the symbolic king for the slaughter, where someone
Yes,
is allowed to be the king for a little while, and then they're
yes,
killed, and their blood is then used to sanctify the earth or to whatever the mock king. Now,
yeah.
in the old Anglo-Saxon tradition, and his name with a name like Kirk, he's of old British heritage.
Well,
I'm sorry,
Kirk means church, doesn't it?
Kirk is church. I'm
Charles
assuming,
means free man.
yeah, I'm assuming, right? I'm assuming, but yeah, that's his heritage, right? He looks it anyway, right? So
Yeah,
in old English, one of the Anglo-Saxon rituals was the red robin, where they would cut a
yes,
someone's throat and use the blood to fertilize the soil. Now, often it was a criminal, but non-exclusively. They used to have an
yeah,
individual which they would call a Peter or a Martin, and he would be
yeah,
born to be made Red Robin one day. And
yeah,
before,
yeah,
on the eve of having his throat cut and fertilizing this land in England, with this in the rural England, he would get to be with the most beautiful woman in the town. He would be treated very well. He would have everything come very easy to him. And then he was
yeah,
made into a Red Robin. Now,
yeah,
to me, if you were to say if that, whatever that, you see, the secret unknowns have a religion that we can only get hints of. You want to talk about a cult, right? It seems to
oh
be a little
yeah,
bit of paganism, a little bit of old-fashioned Satanism, a little bit of Abrahamic. But is Frasier's The Golden Bough and things like the rituals contained in that, is that
yeah,
the book that really is telling us what the religion is behind the scene? You know, like the ones in
yeah,
the like so Charlie Kirk was raised not knowing he was going to be a Martin or a Peter, and he was
yeah.
sacrificed, and that's why he married a model and whatever she was, you know. But
I
and
think
given
you'd
the love of
somewhat
God,
freak out if you thought that was the case.
yeah, you know, and this whole thing of their weird way they were met and everything, it seems so staged. Now, I'm not mocking
Yeah,
the guy or any. I'm not mocking a family who. I'm not. I'm talking about. I'm like you. We're trying to look behind the occult, the hidden organ, what's behind there, you know. But that's that. This is now a whole egregore now. Charlie is now the conservative Christ,
yeah.
and his name is
Well,
Kirk.
I'll be quite honest, Thomas. I'd never bloody heard of him until he got shot.
Well, I didn't.
What does
I
that
heard
tell
of
you?
him, but I knew nothing about him except I'd seen the odd video here and there. I saw those videos, and even the way he went to the colleges, right? Listen to this, Colin, with the microphone. What was they? They were the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed, you know,
Yeah,
when he say, "I'm a conservative Christian, but I have nothing against gay people. I'm a conservative
yeah.
Christian, but I have nothing against transgenders. I only want them to be happy to get to make sure they do the make thing in life." Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. His turning point USA is with a Sermon on the Mount.
Well, why'd you have to say I've got nothing against somebody? It's like me being an Englishman saying I'm a conservative Englishman, but I've got nothing against bog trotters. I mean, what? Who says that? I mean,
Yeah,
I've only said that for a comedic effect, if you like. It's like
yeah,
I don't give a shit where you're from, Thomas. You're a lovely chap. That's all that matters.
yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I know, but it was, but in
Yeah.
America, but the American kind of thing, everything is very like identity politics. But it's still
Don't
interesting,
have to apologise for existing.
yeah. And I'm telling you, these people have a religion that we that you know we're reminding us of. Did you ever hear the old Bill Cooper things, Mystery Babylon? He was the kind of great granddaddy of conspiracy. He used to broadcast on shortwave
Yeah,
radio, the hour of our time, and he would talk about what we're talking about right now. And it was
yeah.
if it had followed that trajectory, it'd been in a much better space. But of course, all kind of other nonsense came in between. But I think his whole thing of Mystery Babylon, I think that's what we're talking about now. A you know, there's a mystery school that they have behind the scene that they get out of Ivy League schools or whatever. And fellas like us are always trying to decipher what's really going on.
There's something odd with the world at the moment. But then you see, how are you spelling world? Is it WORLD or is it WHIRED? It's like world around. Are you being whirled around?
World around, yeah. And
You know, the
the world card
you
in the
see,
tarot means completion of a cycle. So this would
it
tie in with
does.
wave function collapse as well. That they
I'm
don't
being
want the
whirled around.
they don't want the wave function to collapse, so they're creating chaos. They're whirling chaos. They're spooling, spooling, spooling and
Yeah,
fooling bewilderment to stop the world
yeah,
from completion from happening, for the cycle to ending. Because
yeah.
there's definitely a sense of all of us agree that we're at the end of some kind of cycle. And
I think we're at the end of the commercial age, which goes back to my comments about the price of oil. Commerce and finance, as we understand it, I think is finished. And I wouldn't mind betting that there's going to be something serious goes on by February of next year.
yeah, I think you're right.
If it was
I
going to
get that
if it
feeling
was
too.
going to put a date, I would say the 26th of January because of day counts that I've done on a 2160 moon cycle day count
It's
back from 2021.
that, and also it ties in nicely a lot of that stuff with the plans for UBI and all this stuff. Because let's be honest, as soon as UBI is in, the age of commerce has ended.
Yeah,
Because labor is no longer the factor of the other side of the scales. It's gone. So it's not there is no
yeah.
commerce.
But then if you go back to occult and occultic technologies, if there's technologies to assist us, then why aren't we using them? I'm not being funny. Technology comes from the word technique. Well, there's techniques of washing clothes. You can go down to the river and bash them on a rock, or you could go to the kitchen and open up your washing machine, shove them in, shut the door, press a button, and come back in about an hour. It's
Yeah.
all done. In the meantime, what are you doing? Are you playing the guitar, going for a walk, reading a book, or are you bashing your clothes on a rock in the river? There's techniques of heating your home. You can have a coal fire and light it every morning and fuck on with the ash or whatever else you do. Or you can just press the button and the central heating fires up on a timer.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting from work, the house is warm. The, people think of technology as being computers. No, technology is anything that where a technique is applied. Knocking nails in with a hammer is a technology. It's a percussive technology. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Hammers are technology. That's technology. That's for marking bits of paper. I write sigils known as letters, and they're symbolic of words that are spells and spelled. And people say, oh, there's no such things as word magic. Well, the bloody well is. Look, there's pages of it here. I've printed it all off. You know, you and I know what these signs mean. And you know what Cairo is, right? That signifies right ascension of a star. If you're
Tell me
stood at the
about
North Pole,
tell me about Pyro because I don't know a lot. I know it was the sign of the Vatican and what was seen in the sky by Constantine. But tell me about Pyro what you know about it.
well, I'll just do a couple more symbols and then we know what we're talking about. Oh, there's Chi, which is the cross in Greek, and that's Rho, which is the letter I. So it's X and an R. Now, X marks the spot. So on the Chi, you've got your cardinal points of north, east, south, and west, and then this is up and this is down. Well, when the sun rises, if you're stood on the North Pole, it rises and ascends to its, I can't
Zenith,
remember the word,
Zenith,
apex in the
Apex.
south. It's zenith, sort of say, yeah, in the south. So it ascends and moves right. And that is from the perspective of standing on Earth. Now, bearing in mind, you burn your arse if you were stood on the sun, but if you were stood on the sun, the Earth would rise on the left, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would be left ascension. Now, if you go looking up Greek, left is Arioste, which is star. Star and left have got the same etymological root in Greek. So
Star.
star. So when you are the star in your own heaven, because your body's your own earth, if that makes sense from a third and fourth dimensional perspective. And again, the Cairo points to three dimensions because you've got your three axes of motion there. You've got up and down, left and right, and in and out.
The Pyros, I tell you, you saw David Halpin that I had on recently. He
Yeah,
I went to a lecture he did in Nice years ago, and he showed a photograph of the inside of a megalithic chamber that had the pyro
yes.
symbol on the wall 5,500 years ago. So there's
Yeah, because
obviously
that's what it
something
means.
very interesting going on, going back a very, very fucking long time.
Oh, yeah. But then you see, if you think about can't even speak now, Pythagorean geometric form with all your platonic shapes, platonic solids, then you're into all this. This has been known for thousands of years. There's no bloody way they built the pyramids without understanding geometry. It wouldn't have been
Yeah,
possible. That's some serious mathematics going into building the pyramids. And Göbekli Tepe and the Baalbek stones in Lebanon and all sorts of other bloody stuff all over the world. How the hell did they do it? They
yeah,
had some serious technologies going on, and then
yeah.
something's happened on the Earth, and I would suggest it was around the Younger Dryas time, about 12,000 years ago.
I agree.
Total calamity, wrecked everything, and it's taken us 12,000 years to get almost back to where we were 12,000 years ago.
I totally agree. Yeah,
That's
I'm completely down
yes,
with that
that's
theory.
my thoughts.
yeah, and the evidence is to prove this. Like now they've discovered literally massive cities, New York-sized
Oh
cities
yeah,
in the Amazon. That they
yeah,
thought were hills, but they're actually tall buildings that are covered in jungle. So
yeah. Covered
it,
in earth, covered in jungle. I
yeah,
mean, you see, the Earth's just decayed plant matter, so the plants grow up, and then it all basically ends up under soil eventually. I mean,
yeah,
it
and
takes a while, like, but it
these
does happen.
text what happens, yeah. But there was a great documentary series on the Channel 4 about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, where they showed what would happen in New York if suddenly everything ended overnight. And literally
Yeah,
within 300 years, it's a jungle
there'll
with
be hardly anything left.
and all the tall buildings have collapsed because the
No,
structures are rotted away and the foundations are flooded and everything. And it's literally just what they found in the what you call it in the Amazon jungle now. Literally, a New
yeah,
York type city that's where that is now. So I've absolutely
yeah.
no doubt about that. Those 12,000 years ago ties in with a lot of things, and
Well,
it
it's
it's
halfway through the Great Age, isn't it?
it sounds right too, doesn't it? It ties in with so many things that it took them about 4 or 5 thousand years just to get back to building megaliths again, but it
Yeah,
was still a hell of a long. I mean, it explains the Sphinx versus the Temple of Karnak. They're obviously from two very different periods, but
yes,
however, and we'll have to come back in a minute because this first section is nearly ending. Are you okay to do
yeah.
another 40 minutes?
Certainly, yeah, I'd love to. Love to.
The thing is that there was some priest class or somebody had remembered the old knowledge and brought it back again so they could build the Temple of Karnak. It hadn't
Yes,
vanished. And I think that same priesthood is the same one. Whatever. I want to say priesthood. I don't mean necessarily religion, but like the secret unknowns, whatever. That's
yeah,
they're the architects of the egregoric reality to this day.
yes.
Tell me about, and this is something I've been studying myself. I need to know more about pre-classical Greek geometry because, like we were saying earlier on about they were unbelievable mathematicians and specs of the technicians with the pyramids and so on. But that was
Yes,
pre-Pythagorean, and so there had to have
yes.
been a geometry before, like there was a civilization before. There was a geometry before geometry. What have you like discovered along that stuff? You being an engineer and everything, that should be really it should be really good for us.
Well, if you look at how geometry works, geometry is from the geode, and the geode is the measurement of the surface of the Earth. Well, if you understand your hermetic principles, which again is going back to Pythagorean geometry, then the Earth is a reflection of the heavens in the same way that your body is a reflection of your own mind. But that's possibly getting a bit deep into it regarding the geometry subject, if you like. But if you study astrology, then it's all geometric. It all goes round on a wheel. And that wheel has 12 sections, and the 12 sections are the 12 signs of the zodiac, um, as viewed from the Northern Hemisphere, where most folks live on the Earth. Even today, most of the world's population is actually in the Northern Hemisphere. Um, so to accurately predict the motions of the stars and the planets, you need a geometric system. And the geometric system is tied in with time. So you've got from the point of view of the third dimension, which is the human body on Earth, and the viewpoint from Earth, so that's a geocentric viewpoint of the universe, then without wishing to upset all these flat earthers, the sun and the moon and the stars revolve around the earth from a geocentric perspective. And it is only a perspective because, as I said earlier, if you were on the surface of the sun, apart from getting your arse toasted, then the earth and the planets and the stars would revolve around the sun. But then you see, if you're at galactic center point, the sun and the solar system and the galaxies all revolve around galactic center point. So again, it's a matter of perspective. So from galactic center point, our solar system is, and let's do a bit of Star Wars here. we're on the outer rim,
Yeah.
right? Now, our perspective, because we're human physical bodies on the surface of the planet of the Earth, everything revolves around us because I am not the center of the universe, but I'm the center of my own universe, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So when you're getting into three-dimensional space, again, where's my little? I've drawn it a bit bigger now. There you go. There's your three-dimensional space, and these are Venturis, which actually I believe if you're looking down the top one, you're looking into a circle and you see four branches coming into it, which I
You're looking into
believe
a cone.
is this.
You're
Pardon?
staring down a cone.
Yeah, you're looking down a cone.
Yeah.
I believe you're looking at a Celtic cross.
Okay. How did you get that?
Now, well, because this circle here on the Celtic cross is one of these cones. Well, I mean, this is getting into dipole electron flood theory, but also on Celtic crosses, you get these patterns. Well, that's number 7 in the prime knot series. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, these are all on Wikipedia if you want to look them up. So if you cross however many boundaries, you will eventually reach the center. So you could have a little sort of circle in the middle of there, which is, again, I mean, this is how crazy. Again, we talk about egregore. That's the Galactic Empire in Star Wars. It's the same bloody symbol. That's a Cairo. So if what the films do, they affect the collective conscious and the egregore and how things work. So that's what I'm sort of looking at. Now, I know you're particularly fond of Tolkien's works, and I think Tolkien's works are phenomenal. He talks about the battle for Middle Earth. Well, the Mediterranean Sea is the Middle Earth Sea.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
sea of Middle Earth. So if you invert the symbolism, then the battle for the control over the Mediterranean, which is the sea at the middle of the earth, is the battle for Middle Earth in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. We spoke earlier about you mentioned the priest classes. Well, there's 4 classes of man on earth. You've got the priests, you've got the kings, you've got the merchants, and then you've got the peasants. So you've got Gandalf the wizard, the priest. You've got Boromir the king, yeah, and then you've got what was the name of the swampy city where they were all merchants, weren't they? It was
What was the
destroyed
name?
by the dragon.
Which city?
Which is the city destroyed by the dragon in the Lord of the Rings series?
Oh, it's
It's gone
Gilliard.
out of my head.
Oh, it's Gilliard.
Well, that was they were the merchants, and then the,
Yeah.
the hobbits are the little people, the peasants. So there's your 4 classes of man represented in that. So I was looking again at the Cairo and also the Celtic cross. Well, you can come out of here and go round and back in again, and you can come out of here and round and back in again, and the same thing. Well, that's the Borromean rings, yeah, which is the first in the prime knot series because there's 3 crossings of the rings, and it's like magician's rings. You'll see them at the stage show, won't you? That's the Borromean rings.
No, but what does
Now, if you alter
What
them,
does the Boromir ring mean in physics and science? What does it mean?
well, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
It's giving you again on the Cairo system. That's your 3 axes of 3-dimensional space within the 3rd-dimensional realm, which is the human physical body on the physical earth.
Right.
Yeah, which is calc in your rooms. Yeah, heaven is elk sedge. Yeah, so if you look at that there, you've got a hexagon in the middle of that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
Okay.
can you can draw your Star of David in it, and
Yeah.
then there you've got your 3 planes. So you can do your X, Y, and Z axes graphs on there as a 3-dimensional graph form within a regular icosahedron, which has got 20 faces.
Yeah,
So these are all sort of interesting numbers. But if
That's
you look
why
also,
that's
if
why
you
the
look
hexagon.
also on this, it's all connected with triangles. Can you see?
Yeah, that's why the hexagon is the most important of the main after the vesica
Yeah.
Pisces. It's the most important of the geographic. I cover in my book Sorcery because it's the one that becomes self-replicating. Because in the middle of
Yes.
that is a pentagram. In the middle of the pentagram is a hexagon. It represents
Yes.
the dynamic of recreation, eternity.
Yes. But this is what's going on here. So you've got your three rings. So there's your Lord of your Rings. The Lord of the Rings controls the rings. Yeah. And so that is the control of third dimensional space. So if you can cut the knot, then you can escape three dimensions, but still remain in the third dimension. And I would suggest possibly what's going on in the world at the moment is there's some attempt to have cut that knot somehow or other. And it's going to bring the fourth dimension into the third dimension, which would
Okay.
mean you could possibly become partially immortal, which
Now we're
could
getting
be something to do with Babylonian magic.
well. Now we're getting really out there, and it's also not that out there. You know the discovery in recent years of the hexagon on the top of Saturn. You talked about
Yes,
cutting the cord. Now, what that hexagon is on the top of Saturn defies everything because you cannot make that. Nature doesn't make that shape. Okay, that's a man-made
yeah.
visualization or whatever, alien, whatever.
What
That
color is it?
there is a. Do you know that there's an energy stream that goes from
Yes,
Saturn uniquely to the planet Earth? And you talk about cutting
yes,
the cords. You know, are we bonded? I know we're bonded to the esoteric symbolism of Saturn, Kronos as time and things like that. But is this planet
yes.
somehow bonded in a sense to Saturn? And now we have this thing of Europa,
I
one of the
think it is.
jewels. Go on.
Well, I think it is, but I don't quite understand how. But
Mm,
the hexagon on the top of Saturn is purple.
yeah,
Now, if you get back
that's
into
that's
heraldry,
the regal color is purple. It's a mixture of blue and red.
it's
Yeah,
the imperial color, isn't it?
yeah, kingdoms because
So
it was the most expensive pigment to make back in the days of paints. Oh, the
yeah, here we
paint.
go. So color purple is heavenly body is Mercury. Interestingly, the jewel is amethyst, and its virtue is temperance. So, if there's one thing humanity needs at the moment, as everything's in chaos, is temperance. Which card numbers temperance and tarot? Do
I'm
you
not.
happen to
I
know?
think I think it's six. I'll check now. But
I've
yeah,
got mine over there.
and temperance is a very important alchemical card
Yeah.
because it's the balancing of substances to create to remove volatility.
Yeah. Well, number six is interesting because number six is the number of carbon. What
If
have
it
we
is
got
six,
there? Oh, wrong bloody
I'm just
card.
checking here. Well, we have to get this right. Um, I'm out of practice with this
Wrong
stuff.
packet. Hang on. Let's have a look. Oh,
We'll get the bloody deck. Just wait.
right, folks. Here we go, Thomas. There's a good book for you.
A great book. That's still the best.
Don't know where I got that idea from.
Yep, it's still the best one, and that original copy is still the best.
Yeah. Oh, I can't find it. You found him.
No, I passed by it because
Let's have a look in my book. It might be easier to.
this is a new deck, so it's a bit sticky the glue on it. But anyway, go ahead. Like temperance.
No, Temperance is 14.
That's okay. It's 14. Okay.
No, the Lovers is number 6, and the Pope is number 5. Interesting.
But
Anyway,
the number six is very similar to temperance because it's natural law, the male and the female, balance and harmony.
yes.
There it is.
Well, you see, in the third dimension, you need a polarity. Well, the polarity to man is woman, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, negative and positive and up and down, in and out, left and right, north, south, east and west. They're all polarities. You know, and everybody said, "Oh, you've got to be positive at all times." Well, let's see you try and start your car with two positive terminals on your batteries. Good luck to you with that one. You know, without
Natural
the
law.
negative terminal, you ain't going to get a circuit.
Yeah. And there's another thing. You show that your pyro, the cones in the center. Uh, the center point is extremely important where they all
Yes,
meet because it's everything. You talk about polarity, but that's the point of creation where everything is neutral at the point of zero, and from
yes,
that all potential spill out in all directions.
I would say so. Yeah,
And you often wonder if you could. I was speculating with two cones for years, meeting in the
yeah,
center. If that central point was somehow could be resolved as a hexagram, as the kind of the Berting symbol seal of the
yeah,
whole thing.
yeah. Well,
And there's
again,
another thing. There's another thing.
if you get,
We could go everywhere with this. So we have the
oh yeah,
hexagon on Saturn, right, which is the Star of David, right? This right
yeah,
now we have this what's going on with Israel. It's kind of seems to be falling apart, and it's losing its charisma, even amongst the
yeah.
people that supported it. There's so much symbolism going on right now. We're like living in this esoteric Disneyland, trying to pick your way through it.
But again, as I was saying earlier, it's the end of the mercantile commercial realm. That's collapsing. Now, what you have to understand, there's a difference between a nation and a country. A nation is, well, the word nation for a start off comes from the etymological root of nascent, which means to be born. Well, I was born on the earth, you were born on the earth, everybody watching this was born on the earth from their mother earth, or their mother's earth, should I say. And a country is a corporate entity. So what's the trick they've played on us, and it's a subtle trick, and you've got to really get your head around this, is that the trying to confuse people by saying this is your national identity, identify with their corporation. Israel, the state of Israel, because a state is a contract, a state of mind is a contract. The state of Israel, that contract in that commercial entity is not a nation. The nation of Israel is a different thing altogether. The nation of Ireland is different from the state of Ireland. And this again gets back to flags. Flags signal the intention of the vessel. The English flag is courage over innocence, which incidentally is exactly the same as the Imperial Japanese flag. It's courage over innocence in all quarters. They're both island nations. The Japanese are ethnically Chinese, but they're on a little island. The Brits are and the Irish are ethnically European,
Germans, yeah,
but the little islands off the coast.
yeah.
So there's something going on, and it's a subtle trick. Again, it's egoric because the egregore is that, oh, I'm English and I'll attach myself to the flag. Well, hang on a minute, that flag is of a corporation. What is the United Kingdom? It's not a landmass, it's a corporation. The United Kingdom Corporation it's a corporation. That's all it is. It's bankrupt. That's why they have fiat currencies,
Well, they
because
didn't
they've
hide
got no gold.
back when they created the union. They didn't hide that. It was basically
No,
initiated by banks in Edinburgh and London.
yeah.
You
But
know,
what do they register to create the bonds? It's the name on the birth certificate. But what do they actually register? They don't register your body that does all the work. They register the placenta that's cut off. which you mentioned in your video, well, this afternoon that I watched,
The tree of life.
the tree of life,
Yeah,
because that is the root. That is the root to your sustenance whilst you're developing within your mother's womb,
yeah,
and then you're born of your mother's earth, the same as your body is made from the constituent elements of the earth. So again, if you're getting back to elk and calc, right? Calc is the root of man. There's the roots of the tree, because there's the tree trunk. There's the tree trunk. And these are the branches of the tree. And the branches are at the top of the trunk. Well, look, your body's known as your trunk, isn't it?
yeah.
You know, your
And when
core strength,
and when you cut off a
and you
head as well,
branch off into heaven.
and when you cut off a head as
That's
well,
a significant. Have you ever considered that the combination of these two? That's Vitruvian man. All you've got to do to get Vitruvian man, right? There you go, Vitruvian man. It's
yeah,
elk and calc joined,
yeah,
and where his arms are there, there's your British flag, and that's also on the Basilica of St Peter's Square, Rome.
and
That
when,
pattern
and when
around the middle, they've got a picture of the pineal gland.
and when, yeah, but that no, that's a different thing. But I know what you mean.
Let's get into brain architecture another day's chat. Yeah,
Well, no, that it's actually the pine cone of Dionysius. It goes back to pagan times. That was his symbol because the Vatican is full of old Roman paganism symbols. The
yeah, but the devil stands at the crossroads.
Yeah, when you cut a head off something, it's called truncated. It's called the
Yeah,
trunk. So you just have the trunk,
yeah,
right? Now, in esoteric Western magic, and this goes back to Greek magic, like way back to Hellenic magic. You have a thing called the bornless
yeah,
ritual. The bornless. You like this? I don't know if you know about it. The bornless rite. It's usually one of
yeah,
the. It's sort of like the prima materia of like ritual magic. It's one of the first rituals you learn, and you summon forth an entity called the headless man. It's almost
yes,
like it's a symbolic decapitation of yourself in order to
yes,
remove, to become truncated and bornless, meaning you have no past. You are now you are outside the control. You are outside it. You're truncated. You're now you've called forth the bornless man or the headless man. And I know this is like, I do have my own like fucking, way out there things too. Do you remember the water bucket ritual? That was the precursor to the needlecraft and everything else. Well, I remember that.
yes,
Remember they all would pour the bucket of water, cold water over themselves, right? And they would often leave the bucket on their heads for the selfie. That was like to me,
yeah,
that was the bornless right. It was all the NPCs and the normies saying, we are no longer this now. We are no longer who we were. They were tricked into it, of course. It was a sleight of hand occult, right? They were pulled into that, and it was the precursor to accepting the transubstantiation of the sacred needlecraft, where they would have DNA that was owned by corporations. So they were completely truncated in terms of the humanity.
yes.
Yep, I do believe
Yeah,
that.
it's a decapitation. You're cutting the head off the snake. Well, the snake is the Kundalini energy coming up your spine.
Yep,
You know, number 33 is significant in Freemasonry because there's 33 vertebrae in the human spine, and the
yep,
34th bone is the skull.
yep,
Well, the captain of the vessel, if my body is the vessel that's registered under the birth certificate system within the corporate system, well, my soul is the captain that stands on the bridge.
yep.
And what projects everything up into your mind from your brain? It's the pineal gland. Again, that is in the center of the Union flag sort of shape on St. Peter's Square. St. Peter sends it up to heaven.
That's
I'm
what I
sure
think.
that's what that's about.
A lot of me wonders just how far Freemasonry goes back, because they said Jesus Christ. Okay, we know that Jesus Christ is a product of the Roman Empire, and
I
like
think it's I, I think it's to
he,
do with the
he, he,
Babylonian stuff that we're trying to unpick.
before that, because the 30, well, there
Yeah,
was like things like Tammuz and all these kinds of other things. The 30, they were always told that Jesus lived to be 33, and we know
They
that's
all
like
did.
the Masonic number. But the best one of all was when they murdered Pope John Paul I, which was the coup on the
On the
Holy
Vatican.
See, and he was murdered when he
I
was
think that
30.
was the Jesuits getting in.
Oh, absolutely, that was definitely was, yeah, at 33 with the mafia, with the help of the mafia, and that was it. At
Yeah.
33, La Costa Nostra was involved in that too as well. Now, Francis Ford Coppola made The Godfather 3, a film everyone slags off. Why? Because he did a lot of whistleblowing in that film. I suggest people watch that
Oh
film.
yeah.
Really watch it. Really watch it.
Well, there was the banker who was found under Blackfriars Bridge and he was hung like the hangman, wasn't he?
Yeah, Roberto Calvi,
Calvi, that was him.
and
Well, Calvi.
the doctor who ruled it a suicide was Prince Philip's personal surgeon.
Would you believe it?
And the last thing he was seen doing was bashing on the doors of the Freemasonic Lodge in the City of London, demanding to be let in, and they kept the doors
Yeah.
locked on him. Now, there's not, the whole symbolism of that, Jesus trying to knock on the temple, this kind of thing, the whole, I mean, there's a part of it I know is ritual, but there's also a part I know that's kind of fulfilling prophecy, like a kind of like a
Yeah.
kind of a, like a, an esoteric magic that floats these narratives that people like Charlie Kirk slot into, people like Roberto Calvi slot into.
Yeah.
That it's almost like they're constants, they're esoteric constants that that the
Last
Red
time we
Robins fall
spoke,
into.
last time we spoke, I was suggesting that you see the Bible may be a Masonic construct, sort of contract with the devil sort of a thing, and it's the script for what goes on this earth for whatever reason. Are we paying some sort of karmic debt for whatever we created? I mean, who knows if if the human mind is so powerful as it can create stuff, and they've used Babylonian magic from however many thousands of years ago, and they pushed it too far and brought disaster in on themselves. I mean, who's to say? And then we've had to pay a karmic debt for the last 12,000 years, and we're just about out of it. Who knows? There's a possibility of that. And that's what's all these blood sacrifices and wars have been about. I mean, people think the war's terrible at the moment, and I'm not saying it's not terrible, but if you consider how many people died in the First World War and then the Second World War, what's happening at the moment is a walk in the park, you
Yeah.
know?
Or how many people died in industrial accidents in the past? Enormous.
Oh, horrendous.
Yeah.
Well, all that's gone away, or
Yeah.
mostly.
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly.
There's another thing you just remind me of again. I know I got jumps all over the place. And now I've forgotten about the before you said about the sacrifice. I was talking about these esoteric things that people slot into. I've forgotten now. I can't remember. But there's yes, King James. The King James Bible
Yes.
is very different than the Catholic canon. The Catholic apostolic apollis Apostolic Bible. It's very different
Yeah.
in its use of
Yeah.
language. You want to talk about a
Yes.
grimoire, it uses
Yes.
language in a certain way that's written quite different. That they sat down, and this is how all the mistakes came into it, regarding things like Lucifer and so on. King James, King James was terrified of witches. He
Yes.
also basically his honeymoon was based on him and his wife from Denmark watching witches being executed in Berwick in Scotland, and he was
Yeah.
the whole Pendle thing, which is very much tied in with the Jesuits. This was great at that
Yes.
time, and Catholicism being the enemy. But
Yeah.
that was almost like a fear of the resurrection of the pagan. And the exact same
Yes.
thing, like you had the gunpowder plot, right? And so England, the Jesuits tried to blow a parliament, and the English Protestant ascendancy went nuts and basically went to war against what was the remaining pagans, which would have been the folk magicians of like Lancashire and all these other the Pendles and all that
Oh
stuff in
yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah.
And well, here we are again in the wake of America's gunpowder plot is now a transgender guy killing Charlie Kirk, and here we are again, a fear of the pagan again.
What I was going to say about the Bible, which you brought me back to because we ended up going somewhere else. I think the King James Bible is a re-edition of the Bibles that Thomas Cromwell wrote for Henry VIII.
Yeah,
And I think Henry VIII, by setting up the mercantile system, has trapped all the greedy bastards on this earth into chasing money and enslaving people through a financial system. And it's just coming to a head now because we talked about the placenta being the root of life in a developing fetus. Well, Henry VIII was born at the Palace of Placentia, and the Palace of Placentia stood at the site of what's now the Greenwich Observatory, which is, guess what? That's zero longitude, and it forms the basis of the control of time, which is the fourth dimension, in the commercial arena through maritime law. But get this, I've been looking into birth certificates. Your name on the birth certificate, you're registered under the name of the king. King Charles is not the king of England. He's the king of the United Kingdom. He's Lord Liege of the United Kingdom, which is a registered corporation. Which, interestingly, if you watch your Monty Python Philosophy Football World Cup, the Greeks win 1-0. They beat the Germans 1-0, right? You ever think about that? The Greeks win. Democracy comes from the Greek word of the people, the power of the people. So it's bloody clever when you're getting into it. So if you, under the birth certificate system, your corporation is registered under the name of the king. So your soul is named. So your mother and father name your soul. So your soul name is Thomas. Yeah. Your slave's name is Thomas Sheridan. That's your body from the neck down, because your soul stands on the bridge as captain of the vessel. Your body is the vessel for the soul. And the account of the vessel, not the account of the soul, the account of the vessel, which is corporate, right, is your account, is your entitled name. So all these entitled people, they're trying to be two-dimensional because the accounts are written on flat paper. They pay for the body that's three-dimensional, and your soul is a fourth-dimensional entity. And people aren't getting this. So I think that if your vessel is registered under the name of the king, then that your body is a royal naval vessel under the king, under admiralty law, not maritime law, which governs commercial contract. So when all the governments and all the countries, so be careful when you apply yourself to the flag of the nation, which is an empty vessel because it's corporate. It's a very subtle thing. You're going to have to go away and think about this, Thomas. I can see the cogs whirling round.
Yeah, no,
the Borromean rings are going whizzy whiz.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know a lot about legalese, so that's why I'm trying to get a framework for it. Where I can understand that easier. Yeah, I've heard all this stuff before years ago, and
think about it like this, right? Whenever anybody goes to court, so Black's Law Dictionary says this, Black's Law Dictionary says that. Well, is the Bible therefore White's Law Dictionary? The law of God is written in White's Law Dictionary, which is the Bible, because that's the operating script for the contract with the devil.
Yeah, that's what they mean when they talk about Judeo-Christian civilization. They're really talking about the Bible as the basis of all laws and contracts.
You see,
that's what they're really talking about, not the culture of the civilization.
Oh, yeah.
The legalese, the statutes. Yeah. And you just set me off another thing. Then you mentioned Henry VIII, right?
But it's Babylonian magic, isn't it?
Who was his daughter?
It's Babylonian magic in action, but it's almost as though he's tricked them with their own bloody tricks.
No, but hear me out again. Who was Henry VIII's daughter?
Elizabeth I, allegedly.
Okay. The fairy queen, right? You read up on her coronation. It was literally a magic ritual. She came out completely covered in white in a kind of a massive ritual where she was declaring herself basically the Virgin Mary of England, the Virgin Queen, because the Virgin Mary was considered a heresy within the Protestant religion. So she was considered the
Yeah,
veneration of her. So she became a substitute Virgin Mary for the Protestants of England, right? It was
yeah.
exactly the same thing that Erica Kirk did when she came out on that stage. She was dressed head to toe
Oh,
in
yeah,
white, and she was being declared as the Holy Mother, the Virgin Mary, who lost her son, we'll say a symbolic son, right? But they didn't seem
yeah,
like a real couple, right? Who was a Christ-like figure who gave sermons on the mount. They're using the same fucking tricks over and over again.
yeah, yeah. But who was Elizabeth's conjurer? It was John Dee and Edward Kelly.
Mm.
Enochian magic. You're back to Pythagoras and his angles and his geometry. It's the use of sigil magic through geometric progression on a circular table, isn't it?
And
You
they
know,
were
they do all the sigils round, and then they spell the words out, and then draw the geometric shapes, and then apply that to the heavens. Now,
in,
if you've moved the prime meridian of the Earth, and I suspect it used to run through the Great Pyramid at Giza in Egypt,
oh,
which was
definitely did, yeah,
Egyptian magic,
it definitely
and
did.
they've moved it to Greenwich for whatever reason, and then that has been the basis for a time manipulation. Now,
Well,
if you're getting
they,
into time
they,
manipulation, if you want to get proper tinfoil hat, there's people saying that Donald Trump looks like General Patton.
it does,
Well,
yeah,
I heard that and I thought, well,
and he was,
let's have a look at General Patton. And you think, bloody hell, he does look like him.
yeah, and
So I thought,
Patton was a firm believer in reincarnation.
well, let's have a look at a picture of Henry VIII. Who the bloody hell? Look, you look at pictures of Henry VIII. He looks like General Patton and Donald Trump.
I tell you, I totally
I mean,
believe.
I'm not being funny. This,
No, I know you're
this,
not being
if
funny
this
because
is even vaguely true, this is such a head fuck that most people will just not be able to cope with it.
we're getting an insight into a kind of like an underlying software that is so complicated. It speaks to us in these symbols and rituals and pageants that it's like
Yes,
the five rings of the Olympics and all this. What the hell is that really? We know what that is. But you mentioned Greenwich was where John Dee did his create the British Empire. That was where that's where he was based
yeah,
out of. So that's why they moved the meridian. In fact, the whole thing of going to Bohemia under Rudolph II. Rudolph II wanted to make Prague the center of the world, and that's why they went there.
yes, he did.
Of course, it didn't work because the Holy Roman Empire fell apart. Well, it was invaded. It didn't fall apart. It was invaded, and he basically lost his throne. But that's why I had all the alchemists like Rabbi Lowe and the Golem and all that stuff there. It was the magical center of Europe because they were creating it. Rudolph II was creating the whole, it was the Nile, the Danube, or not the river that goes to Vatra. It was to be the Nile running through Central Europe, through
Yeah,
the Danube and river systems. And it's none of it is by accident. And these fellas knew
no,
exactly what they were doing. And Kelly got in there because they make out that Kelly was just like this traveling fucking Irish conjurer. No way. He came from the Umain family. The Umain family claim direct descendancy of the Tuatha De Danann, which many people believe are descendants of Atlantis.
yes. Well, I think Atlantis is the Rickard structure in the Western Sahara, which gets into Carthago de Lenda S, which is Carthage must be destroyed.
Obi-Wan.
What are you saying there, Tom?
Tell me about Carthage, for fuck's sake.
Oh, Carthage. Well, they seem to think it was on the
Hey,
North African coast, but that could
hold
have
on,
been
hold on, hold on.
left of it.
I made a certain request. You have another helmet. Show,
Oh, sorry, yes.
bring on the mystique. Talk to me about Carthage. That's it. Okay.
What, Carthago de Lenda Est, if
Yeah,
you're a Roman. Busy.
that's a
Sorry,
cool.
I'm being hassled by the dear lady.
Okay, so you can take it off and talk. That's a cool helmet, though.
It's got my name on the brow band in Latin, of course. Caius Julius Naso. Let's have a read of it. Can't remember that. Caius Julius Nato, Artifianus, Miles Cos, Primus Legio Vincimus Deva. So that's Guy Julian. Julian because I've got yellow hair. Well, anyway, Naso, which is a big nose. I don't know if they ever noticed. Artifianus because I'm an engineer. Miles Cohos Primus, which is the first cohort, soldier of the first cohort of the 20th Legion of Chester. There you go.
So you were assigned to the garrison in Chester.
Yeah, apparently so. Well, I decided so.
Which,
And just so you
which
know,
was
I've
which
got the half moons of the patricians on the helmet.
Chester, which was also ironically the Roman port for Ireland.
Yeah,
And it has a fabulous temple of Athena there with the or Minerva in the park there, right in the city centre beside the River Dee.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was
Well, she's the goddess of the sea.
all all kinds of well, she was also adopted by the Celts as well. She was one of those kind of crossover goddesses. So that's
Yeah.
we pagans are good at that. We see, we never refuse a goddess we like. So tell us about Carthage.
I was going to say the name Mary refers to a drop of the ocean.
Yeah, Mare, yeah. And then that whole thing of Star of Malice and all.
Maritime law.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
yeah, and there's big Babylonian elements to that as well.
yeah. Right, Carthage. Carthage is first referred to in what you might call modern history, however many thousand years ago that goes, by Pythagoras, who refers to a text by a chap called Solon, which sounds a bit like sun, doesn't it? Solar,
And
Solon.
he was
And he talks about, yeah, he talks about a large city, which was formed of concentric rings that was all full of water. And then there's the Rikat structure in the Western Sahara, which looks very much like what was described, and in
but,
sizes is similar. So who knows?
yeah, but
So
that's a natural feature.
that Atlantis,
That's a,
Carth. So is the Carthage that the Romans from the Punic Wars
yeah.
fought? Were they something to do with what was left of Atlantis? And the Romans were having a pop at the remnants of the Atlantean civilization. That's,
I could
I
run
mean,
with
I,
that.
I don't know for
I
sure.
could definitely run with that. I don't think that Western Sahara thing in Mauritania is Atlantis because that's a natural volcanic feature. I think Solon was right when he said that it was beyond the Pillars of Hercules. We'll talk a little bit
Yeah,
about Aztecs later on, but the Roman you say, you're setting off all kinds of fires in the minds of man now, right? The Roman word conquest
yes,
comes from the Punic Wars, and they
yes,
conquered Carthage. Now, conquest doesn't mean like what it means in later empires like the British or the French or whatever. Conquest meant the Romans a complete annihilation, a complete and utter
yeah,
reset, right? Carthage literally never existed. The Romans were very good at that. They would like do that to emperors and everything. They never existed. Okay. So they did that
yeah,
to Carthage. Carthage never existed, right? Now, funny enough, that was conquered. It was conquered. On the other side of the Atlantic, what were the Spanish guys called who took down the Aztecs? Conquistadors.
conquistadors,
Now,
and they were sponsored by Rome.
and one more, the Aztecs in their capital in Mexico City, they did not build those pyramids and everything that they inherited from an earlier culture, the Toltecs. The Toltecs were
Yeah,
probably like the Carthaginians. They were survivors
yeah,
of Atlantis that went to the Americas. So
yeah,
that ties in very well with your theory that they were finishing off Carthage as the remnants of Atlantis, but the job hadn't been
yeah,
finished until they crossed the Atlantic and got them in the Americas with the
yeah,
conquistador, same thing.
yeah. Certainly there in the etymology. I can't remember what video I was watching. I was watching something just in the last couple of days, and it was something to do with when the Spanish went over to South America, and they were talking to the Aztecs and what have you. They were saying, "Well, what did you do with criminals?" And they said, "What do you mean? What do we do with criminals? We don't have criminals. There's no such thing." As though they had such a peaceful society. Well, why would you need an army and a police force and a government? We all just get along and everything's fine, which is interesting because South America is blooming crazy at the moment. It's one
Well,
of the
that's
crazier
that was
areas.
Central America. But then what about all the them killing all the Mayan prisoners?
Oh, yeah, well, why did they kill them? I mean, were they just getting rid of them? Like you say, if it's part of the Atlantean society, are they just, what are they doing? Are they just getting rid of decent folks to cause hell on earth?
The one of the reasons they always thought that the reason Spanish took them down so easily was okay, they had the help of the Mayans and other tribes to help them. But, and they hear the story about diseases and stuff like that, but also the Aztecs had a very fatalistic view of their own history. They were ready to be annihilated. They
Yeah,
created kind of an egregore that the Spanish had fulfilled. So as soon as the ships appeared on the horizon, this egregore of their annihilation was the prophecy, became an egregore, became fact. This is why we have to be very careful in Europe with the way Europe is changing, that we say things like Britain is finished, Ireland is finished, France is finished, because what we're doing is we're creating a fatalistic egregore that will actually make it happen. We have to be,
yeah,
this is like natural magic again. We have to be very, very careful about this stuff because as soon as that becomes endemic, it becomes prophecy and then it becomes fatal.
yeah.
Yep.
I would agree with you there. I mean, I've been looking into the etymology of words, as you might have noticed with what I've been saying, and the prefix "bri" as in Britain is where you get Brythonic, which is Welsh,
Welsh,
and
yeah.
Brythonic is where Brython, Brython, and so Welsh and Cymraeg is the nearest to the original language of Britain or Britain, whatever you want to call it.
Cornish.
Now, interesting. Pardon?
And Cornish.
Yeah.
Cornish is a
Well,
Brittonic.
yeah. Now,
Wales was
I've
a
been
much
reading some books
Wales was
by,
Wales was a much bigger country back then. It stretched all the way up to the Scottish
yeah,
border.
yeah. And I think good way up Scotland as well, sort of
Yeah,
well
right.
past,
In the
like Perth even.
Yeah, well, that's where
Yeah. So
Maryland lived. Maryland lived up on the Scottish borders,
that's
and
right.
he was a real historical
So So what was saying? Yeah. So Brit is sort of the island, and Briton
figure.
is over the island. So you're stood on the island. You are a Briton. So you are Brythonic, but also um, it's part of the etymological root of noble. So you're above the noble. Well, the nobles are under the king.
Yeah, right.
So that's quite an interesting way of looking at sort of the hierarchy of power
So
structures.
you're
So
saying you're saying there's a
if you're
secret.
a Briton,
Britain has a secret rulership above the king.
yeah, there's something going on, and I think it goes back. But I think that's a form of Egyptian magic, which is why they've moved the um, prime meridian of the Earth from Egypt to Greenwich.
You wonder if it's back to Atlantis again. This whole thing
Well,
of
what's the capital of Egypt? What's the capital of Egypt? I'll give you a quick clue.
Cairo, yeah, and
It's
you
not.
have
It's in the language.
so assuming that like the Atlantis was beyond the Pillar of Hercules in the Atlantic, which I believe there's lots of evidence that it was.
Yeah,
You have a situation where you had the survivors of Atlantis going to both east and west. Now, when it came to our part of the world, we have the two of the Island and Ireland, But as
Yes.
Tolkien points out, there's lots of what he called North British, which would be Brittonic, right? Legends of
Yeah.
kingly race that came from across the Atlantic, very similar to the two of the Atlantic and Ireland, but and they
Yeah.
brought new forms of agriculture, and they exist to this day. He wrote it. He changed them into the Numidians within his mythos, but there's the same thing.
Yeah.
Kingly race that came. This is why Aragorn is a Numidian. He
Yeah.
he's a descendant of them. He's the king of Gondor for that reason. So there you and
Yeah.
Boromir, who we mentioned earlier on, was the king
Boromir Rings.
was the king of Gondor, right? Well, the steward, the son of the steward, and
He was
saw
the
himself,
steward of Gondor.
but he wasn't the
Yeah.
rightful king. Aragorn, who descended from the Numidians, the Atlanteans, was the rightful king
Yes.
of Gondor,
Yes.
and he hid his
So
arrangement.
he was the steward until the king returned.
Yeah,
Which, if you get back into now the United Kingdom, the Lord Liege of the United Kingdom is Charlie, but he's not the true King of England because he's a Danish German. So he's not the true King of England.
as a Prussian.
So who is the King of England?
Yeah,
Is it you?
exactly.
Is it me?
Well, we had the
By the
plantation.
way, Trump was carrying on at Windsor Castle the other week. I would say Trump's the King of England, but when his corporation, the United States, goes bankrupt, he loses his crown. And then who is it? It could be all of us under the birth certificate because all of commercial law is based on English law all over the globe.
Yep.
Doesn't matter whether you're in Ireland or Brazil or Azerbaijan, its basic form of commercial contracting is English law.
Well, that's how Ireland was conquered by the English, not through military force, but by replacing the Brehon laws with the English common law.
Yeah,
That's how they did it with the end of the Gaelic
the
League.
English
Yeah.
the English common law is actually Dane law if you look into it
Well, the Dane
because it's
law.
tried by you're
Well,
tried by your peers in English common law, but they've Romanized the system through statute. So all English statutes, criminal statutes in the House of Commons, which is why it's called the Commons, because it's common criminals go into the House of Commons, right, are dealt with under statute, under commercial contract, through the birth certificate system, because you have to claim title to access the
I
statute.
also wondered why that Nordic part of England was called the Dane law. It was a strange. It
Yeah,
was it was like Ireland being called the Breton law. It was.
yeah,
And what were the Vikings? What was York? And we know that the power of York in England, it was
yeah,
a maritime empire.
yeah. Who was murdered in York? Septimus Severus by his brother Carcalla. Septimus, that's Latin for seven. Severus cut his head off, so he cut him off at the seventh. He didn't make the eighth crossing, which is going back to where's that? Where are we looking? Oh, I've got that many bits of paper.
Well, York was a Roman capital,
Go
wasn't
on. Pardon?
it? York was a Roman
There you
capital.
go. There's the seventh crossing in the prime nutsuit. So Septimus Severus is cutting off at the seventh crossing. So were they cutting off the prime knot? Because you've got to cut the prime knot of seven to get to eight, which is infinity. So there's lots of symbology and maths and weird geometries going on.
No, but
It's it's very unusual.
also brings magic into it because
Yeah,
in Scandinavian magic, and here we have the Dane law again, ropes and
yeah,
knots are how they make sigils.
yeah. I'm just getting something that might be useful in a minute or two.
Like in
Yeah, well,
Finnish magic, Finnish witches create sigils from rope, and knots
yes,
are So that was common all over Scandinavia until the Protestants took over, the Lutherans, and they killed all the witches. But the
yeah,
only place they didn't really take over was like the Karelian parts of Finland. So right up until the 20th century, Finnish magic was considered the most potent form of folk magic in Europe, and they still
yeah.
use the knots. They still use knots to make sigils.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the city of London has the sword of Simeon on the English flag. Simeon is a type of monkeys. Monkeys are simian, yeah. And the monkey's fist knot is based on the Borromean rings
Well, not interesting.
because it's yeah. So how do you catch a monkey trap? Right, you put a nut in a cage, you put sands in, grab the monkey, and it can't pull its fist out because it goes in like that. But when your fist
Monkey,
can't get it
softly,
out,
softly,
so the
softly.
monkey's knot.
Yeah.
You put your hand in, you grab it, you can't get out. Monkey's knot, Borromean ring, cut the knot. There's there's that's very interesting what you said with Finnish witches.
Oh yeah, you should look
Very
into that. What you call it, Lewis's book on European magic has a fantastic section on Finnish folk magic dealing with the knots. Lewis Spence. Now,
well,
you just remind
the
me of something
British
else.
funded the Finnish in a war against the Russians, and they had a symbol similar to that on their planes painted in light blue,
Yeah,
and that's the Tula Gazelle shaft, and that's the sigil of the Black Sun. Which again, if you're going back into Star Wars, the Black Sun looks very much like that one, which is First Order. It's all being shown.
I've seen the original Black Sun symbol in Wewelsburg Castle in Germany, which was the SS.
Yeah,
And the day that I was there, I had the whole place to myself because there was construction going on, and I just ignored the whole thing and went in, and so I had the whole castle to myself. And on the
yeah,
floor, that's the Black Sun symbol sits on a marble floor in a kind of an atrium where it looks over the sort of
yeah,
like the countryside. Directly underneath that is the underground chamber of the 12 knights of the SS. And on the roof
yeah,
below that is that symbol, the swastika symbol with the
yeah,
hammers of Thor in motion. Now, the day that I was there, they had all bean bags scattered all around the floor, like for some
yeah,
kind of meeting, right? So it wasn't scary or disgusting or weird or anything, but there it was. Oh shit, here I am on my own. I'm looking at the actual Black Sun on the floor in
yeah.
Wheelersburg. So I was over. I went to a cafe across the street and I got talking to a lady there. And I says, why are all the bean bags there? And she said, it's a meeting of the Green Party. So who are the Green Party having a meeting inside the SS's temple around the Black Sun?
The
I mean,
Green Party are a bloody death cult. I call them colourblind communists
you
because
can't
you
make,
can't, red, green.
yeah, I know the more of
Hey,
them. You can't make this stuff up. And in the basement of Wheelersburg Castle during the Reformation, that's where they used to take the witches to kill them. That place has an appalling
yeah,
history. They murdered thousands of Jehovah Witnesses and everything there.
yeah, yeah.
And
Interesting
there's
stuff.
and you're in this place and you're just incredibly pleasant, and yet it's the epicenter of some horrible dark things, frightening things. And there's all these bean bags and a kind of a hippie kind of and a coffee machine and espresso machines all around the place for the hippies to talk about
Yeah.
green policy around the Black Sun. You couldn't make it up.
Are they taking up the energy or they diminishing it? Or do they just not know?
Yeah. So when I was down in the
Because you
bay,
see,
this might piss you off. I had it to myself. So I was like, where's this energy? I'm not feeling any great energy here. So just for
yeah,
a pure experimentation sake, I walked around the central area and recited the hymn of Satan, right? Just to see
yeah,
if anything would happen. Nothing
yeah,
happened. But when I got back to the hotel room that night, something did happen beside the church. That's the famous market church in Hanover with the pentagram and the inverted pentagram on the steeple. And I had like what I call a Luciferian manifestation. A huge bright light appeared in the room. But again, it wasn't scary, it wasn't terrifying. But
yeah.
it changed my mind about everything. Like that's where the book Sorcery came from. I came to the point where that everything is neutral at the point of zero. Like literally, that force can be channeled in any direction, any direction.
Well,
So the natural,
energy is energy. It's how
yeah,
you use it.
Exactly. A knife can be used to cut an apple from a tree or to rob somebody.
Yeah, quite right.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, it's everything you think of. It's like my point about try starting your car with two positive poles on your battery. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You've got to have flow, and negative and positive just indicate direction. If I travel from my house to your house, I'm traveling positively towards your house. I'm traveling negative away from my house. But when I leave your house to come back here, I'm traveling negatively back to my house because it's you put it out there and then you've got to bring it back in by reducing it. It's just vector. And again, if you look at the Cairo symbol, that's a vector diagram in three-dimensional space. It's all just physics. The people getting a tizzy about the Bible. Well, all I would suggest is if you understand that the Bible is a book that describes Newtonian and quantum physics and the effects thereof, then what's the bloody fuss? You know,
Give me an
that,
example of where.
that is,
Give me an example of in the Bible where it describes this Newtonian versus quantum thingy. Is there any particular
well,
things?
if you're looking in Revelation, they talk about the seven churches of can't remember what they're called now, but the seven churches. Well, there's seven colours in the rainbow, so there's seven frequencies of light. So if you start at one, that'll be the red one, and then the yellow one, sorry, the orange one, the yellow one, and carry on all the way through. So you go from black to white. So you're going from polarity to polarity through the colours of light. And if you're looking at the way the sun manifests light on Earth through gravitation, then the reduction of wavelength of the light manifests in the physical as solid physical entities between two poles. So to me, that is the revelation of the St. John. So if you think about the pictures of St. John the Baptist, remember in the Neil's Megalithic Earth last year, the lecture about St. John and Jesus, and there's Jesus going like that to St. John because St. John the Baptist was decapitated. Well, if you're being baptized by the light of Lucifer from the black sun, because only black bodies radiate heat, then your black body radiates heat. So you're the light of Lucifer in that respect.
Yeah, I know that. That's
So
absolutely
therefore,
true. That's absolutely true. You're
so
right.
therefore, our bodies, you and I, we're both manifestations of Saint John,
Yeah,
but
and
we're not Jesus because Jesus is the placenta that's been registered at the corporation. This is again back into the corporate trick and the Babylonian system and Carthage and the misuse of magic and the misuse and misdirection of energy and the manipulation of time through third dimensional space, through a fourth dimensional tricking of the mind. So if we can raise our frequencies, because if you think of the chakras, they finish in the head, which is dark blue, the throat's light blue, your speech, yeah, and it keeps going. The heart is green, the sacrum is yellow. Sorry, the solar plexus is yellow, the sacral chakra is orange. Well, how do you get to a man's heart? The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So if you're cut off on the placenta, the umbilical cord, which is the trunk of the tree when you're developing in the womb, the way to get to your heart center, is through your stomach.
in the
That's
time,
that's my interpretation of
no,
when they cut the cord when you're born,
I think
which goes into the play Merchant of Venice, which is an Elizabethan play. Shylock the Jew wants his pound of flesh, doesn't he, from Portia, which means that Portia's given birth to a child and he wants the placenta. And they're saying, but no blood. Well, these days they're cutting the placentas off full of blood and then weighing them and then charging them at that.
when I was a young lad and first arrived in New York, I was doing all these kinds of a lot of these odd jobs for the mafia, and
Yeah,
because I didn't have a green card, I was off the books, and so they would give me work, pay me in cash, and
yeah,
then I ended up getting I got a green card eventually, but legally. But when and then I was still working off the books for them because they're paying me in cash. They were always using the expression. They were great guys too as well. Like no, like, but they were like all made men in La Costa Nostra,
Yeah.
you know. And they were basically, I used to paint up apartments that were the Colombo after John Gotti had John Castellano murdered. They went into real estate. They were buying apartments and houses all over Manhattan and Queens, and
Yeah.
so they used to hire people like fellas, young lads, to just clean the house out and paint them. But they were always using the expression Shylocking. They were always using like when they hear them
Yeah.
talking about things. I was Shylocking here and I was Shylocking there, and this is before I fully realized that La Costa Nostra was a magical order. That basically
Oh
behind
yeah.
it was that, the burning of the saints and all that. But they always use that expression. I'm doing the Shylocking here, Shylocking there, and this kind of thing. Very interesting.
Well, you think about it. If you think about Henry VIII, you know, the possibility through crazy fourth dimension or fifth dimensional time travel, Donald Trump, General Patton, Henry VIII. I mean, that's a bit out there, but we'll for the purposes of this discussion, his daughter being Elizabeth, and all these Shakespearean plays of the Elizabethan era, and then you've got John Dee and Edward Kellin in their Enochian magic. Well, they basically created the modern English language,
Francis
which all
Bacon.
commercial contracts are built. But if you think of English, it's a very strange language, right?
Yeah,
Because you've got basically a bit of every language you can think of, and it's all been shoved in from every angle, right? So if we're looking at three-dimensional space, or even better, fourth dimensional space, right? They've shoved every aspect of every language into what is now known as English,
yeah,
which is why it's the universal language for everybody on Earth. Everything is English. You go anywhere in the world, somebody somewhere will speak English, unless you're in such a remote, crazy part, and there's not very many of those places left. And I think they've used the Enochian language to take aspects of all sorts of different words, because when you speak a word, the energy of that word is vibrated out of you and it goes into the ether and it dissipates. And it also conjures an image of whatever it is you're talking about. So if I say, calculator, boom, you think of one of them, right? You knew it was going to be a box with a screen and buttons. That's a calculator. We know that. That's it. Pen. That's a pen. You're not going to argue the toss because I've said pen. Now, anywhere in the world, somebody will know what you're talking about or have a fairly good idea. So I think the English language is a construction between Brythonic Welsh or Cymraeg Welsh, which was used to translate the hieroglyphs with, like, if you look into Wilson and Blackett's work, which is quite interesting, the Germanic languages, and also Latin. And
when
you've got all that mixed in and pushed in together. So basically, you can make anything out of English. And then, because, people say you're speaking double Dutch. Well, English is double Dutch, isn't it?
yeah. It uses Parisian grammatical rules. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, and you're right.
absolutely.
But it shifts your consciousness because I'll tell you, a few weeks ago I did an event here, and a lot of people there were Irish speakers. So I spent like most of the day speaking in Irish. I actually felt
Yeah,
like I was in a different headspace at the end of the day
yeah,
speaking English, which shows you the power of English. Now back to the Enochian thing. The Enochian thing was brought through by Kelly, and
yes.
it came through with full amounts of rules, all the grammatical rules, all the actual syntax was all correct, and it definitely wasn't fake. These people who say that Kelly was making it up, it's bullshit. It's not. It was brought through.
No.
Now, Colin Wilson, in his book, in his Necronomicon, the Book of Dead Names, is a kind of a satire on the Necronomicon. But Wilson was also an interesting character. I'm reading about his life down in Cornwall. He was a lot more connected than people realize. And in the Book of Dead Names, he writes a satire about that. They actually discovered that Enochian really exists in the desert in Iraq among a rare tribe. Now, this
All
brings us
right.
full circle again to Babylon and everything. Now, assuming that Wilson wasn't bullshitting, and it was maybe,
Yeah.
what they call truth bombs. That's some
Yeah.
revelation, because now we're talking about the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian kings directly. That was an ancient language brought through by
Yeah.
Kelly into John Dee, which
Yeah.
eventually became through Francis Bacon and Shakespeare and everything, what we call
Yeah.
modern English. It's a
Yeah.
mystical language. It's a magical language.
Yeah.
It's a grimoire brought from the ancient Middle East. True, and like this, this also ties in with Lovecraft and his history of the Necronomicon. He says basically the same
Yeah.
thing. So it's a
Yeah.
language of the ancient gods of
Well, you
the
just said it yourself
Middle
there, Thomas. You spent a day speaking Irish and you felt in a completely different headspace to speaking English, which gives you the power of the English language.
big time.
There's something strange about it because I mean, I've never really spoken any other language. I learned a bit of Italian, I've learned a bit of Latin, and I've learned a bit of Russian. But that's basically because I was interested in the alphabets and how they fitted in with English and what it all meant and how it sounds. So it's not a matter of speaking the language, it's just understanding the sounds and the constructions and and how the energy and frequency and vibration of the spoken word has an effect on the psyche, which
Big time.
again is getting into the egregore of what's going on. And modern English was developed in the Elizabethan age because before that it would have been Chaucerian English, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Which was different again.
Old English is basically German.
Yeah, yeah. But then you see, if you start looking at flags, the merchant flag of the House of Hanover, you would recognise as the the red ensign of the British Merchant Navy.
Yeah, it's
And if you're
the
looking at,
East India Company.
if you look, sorry, if you look at the flag of the Electorate of Trier, which was part of the Holy Roman Empire, you will recognise that as the flag of England.
Yeah,
Well, the British Empire has morphed through, I would suggest, from Babylon through Turkey into sort of Czechoslovakia, Germany, England or Great Britain, whatever you want to call it, and parts of Northern Ireland, and then it's crossed the Atlantic. It's now the United States
yeah,
because last week we were 2 weeks ago now we were looking at a tour of old houses of architectural interest in Appleby, Westmoreland, and apparently Turner had stayed at one of these houses as a painter. And I said, "Oh, look, he's on the £20 note. There's
yeah,
Turner,
yeah.
right? Who painted the seascapes and the skies and everything." Now, they got talking and they were talking about Appleby Grammar School and said George Washington was supposed to have gone to Appleby Grammar School. And they were sort of typical Trump haters, like really sort of polarized view. I mean, I don't give a monkeys about Trump one way or the other. I think he's an extraordinarily interesting man,
Oh
and
yeah,
there's no way he's got to where
that's
he isn't
I'm
without there's been
yeah,
something quite magical about him. And
absolutely,
I said,
100%.
you do realise that the flag of Westmoreland is red and white horizontal stripes with a golden tree containing apples on it, and the flag of the United States is red and white horizontal stripes with a defaced upper sinistra quadrant with a blue flag with silver stars on it. I said, so basically, right, the flag of the United States is the flag of Westmoreland. Well, you could say they went west for more land. I mean, how mad's that? That even fits.
Well, it ties in what you were saying just then about most of the transfer through Northern Ireland and into America, the empire.
Yeah,
The majority of the signers of the U.S. Declaration of Independence were Ulstermen. We have the red hand of Ulster, an ancient pagan symbolism that goes back thousands of years. So, I
tribe
mean,
of Judah.
well, maybe I know it was actually the O'Neill family of Ireland, but maybe it could have went back
Yeah,
to an Atlantean thing, okay? But it's an ancient Irish pagan
yeah.
symbol. So either way, it's just remarkable that they came through there. We got about
Well,
3 minutes left until we
the
do the
tribe of Judah's the lion, isn't it? Which is Saint Mark. Yeah. Saint Luke is the bull, which is a frame, is also the unicorn. Yeah. John is the eagle, tribe of Dan. Cuthbert is the Celtic cross with a ruby in the middle of it. Right. Now the ruby was moved from July, the birthstone of July, in the 1500s until the 20th century, and exchange with the turquoise. Well, the turquoise is from Turkey, which is gets you straight back to Assyria. So the birthstone of July, which is Leo, the lion, Reuben. I mean, sorry, Judah. It all gets really mixed up.
I'll wrap
So
this. Look,
why
I'll wrap.
is why is a Babylonian king, mercantile system with ginger hair from the Aryan Assyrian area swapping the birthstone and the Celtic cross for a ruby and swapping it with December, which
Very
is
quickly,
Capricorn, the
very
goat?
quick. We'll continue this on. Quick, I have to wrap it up now. This is brilliant. Anyone in the comments, this is an open discussion on this esoteric extravaganza. Add your own bits to it. I want to hear it because I think uh, we're finding something here. I don't know what it is yet, but it's too beautiful to not just to say, let's end it here. So we'll definitely, Colin, you're definitely going to come back. We have to continue on with this because you have set my fucking brain into a million directions, and I remember things I knew
I
from
could
years ago
talk.
that I've forgotten about
I could talk for a
and now have
week on this without stopping.
relevance. And now have relevance. So thanks very much, Colin. Thanks very
Thank
much,
you,
everybody
Thomas.
who stuck to the end of this. I'm sure it kept you riveted. It kept me riveted, and we'll have a whole other load of esoteric knots. The knot has been the theme tonight. The knot in the cord tonight, and
Yeah,
yeah, definitely, this is great stuff. And the great thing about it is, as the world is changing, this is developing new meaning. You know what I mean? It's almost like the software rewrites itself for each event that comes along.
I think there's an element of that because again, that could be egregoric because you imbibe this information and you process it and you put it back out in your mind. Now, if people are engaged in philosophical thought, which is what I try to do, then hopefully, because I do a lot of it, I make up for all the blooming nitwits who just scroll cat videos on bloody YouTube. Who knows? Or believe whatever they say on the bloody newspapers.
Yeah, I'm
Who
gonna
knows?
I'm
It's
gonna stop this now. We're just about to end. Thanks very much, Colin. Thanks so much, very much, everybody. Please join in. I want to hear what you have to say in the comments. I want you to say these are not the druids you've been looking for.
not the druids you are looking for.